Well, hello and welcome to the Bumper to Bumper podcast. I am Dave Riccio here along with John Riggle, and together we are putting you in the know when it comes to your car. That way, when you go to the auto shop, it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm getting taken advantage of. I have no idea what they're talking about. It's good to have a little bit of base knowledge of your car so you don't feel completely lost. Cars are our second biggest investment, home being first, car being second.
Yep.
And they really affect how much money you have in your wallet if you're not careful.
Oh, yeah.
So I think you want to handle them wisely. And John, I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I guarantee it's happened to you. You're never on break when you're an auto mechanic.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So you're at a backyard barbecue,
Yep.
and someone inevitably approaches you and says, well, what do you do for a living? You know, you're meeting a bunch of new people, and you say, and sometimes I don't want to tell them what I do.
I usually tell them I'm a proctologist.
They don't want to talk about
conversation stops.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Done.
Yeah. But, what do you do for a living? Oh, I work in an auto repair shop. Oh, really? Okay. I got this thing. I've got this car. And they want to start talking to you about their car.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, this is really great. It's so good to know an honest mechanic, right? And they make the assumption that I'm honest, and I'm sure I have an honest face, and I sound honest. But how do they know I'm an honest mechanic? Just because they can have a real conversation versus this conversation we're in the shop and the technician's recommended this and you're talking to a service writer. There's no personal connection.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people get into that. Maybe it's dishonest. But, there's a lot of assumptions that I get from people. There's a lot of assumption that auto mechanics are dishonest. And I agree there are some dishonest auto mechanics.
Yeah, but there's a distinction you have to make. There's two things there that happen, and one of them's competency, one of them's dishonesty. A lot of times, a lack of competency looks like dishonesty, but it's not necessarily, because you don't know what you don't know. But if you believe that you're right, it can come across as dishonesty because you're actually wrong.
Right.
You may believe this thing, and you may have this belief that you hold on to, that this is the way the thing works. This is what's wrong with it. But you could be totally wrong because you don't know that there's another possibility. So it comes across looking as like dishonesty. So I think that in this industry, there is a little bit of dishonesty. There's dishonesty in every industry. There's no difference in automotive repair. But what I think you have is more lack of competency, absolute competency, than just dishonesty.
I would say it is the bigger majority.
Yeah.
And so and you run into is that when somebody doesn't know what they're talking about, now you made the statement, they don't know what they don't know. And that's a huge statement. And that's a huge thing in this business, especially because we're in a specialty and we talk to regular mechanics.
Well, that's kind of inherent in what we do, right? We solve problems. And a lot of times going in, we don't know what the answer is. We don't know what the answer is until we know it. So we actually start off in a position of not knowing. And that's my job, is to find the answers, find the truth.
Right.
Find what the facts are, determine the truth, and figure out what's going on here. So some people are better than that, better than others at that.
Well, yes, but in where I was going with, somebody calls me up and say, "Hey, I got my car over to XYZ Automotive," and they tell me my transmission's bad. So how much for a transmission? And I'm like, "Well, is XYZ Acme Auto Repair down there? Are they transmission people?" No, but this guy's good. He's been around. All right. Well, I've talked to a lot of really, really, really good technicians that are top tier, but they don't know crap about transmissions. And so that's where I run, I say, well, it kind of needs to be checked out by a transmission shop. Not kind of, it needs to be.
Yeah.
And they will, no, trust me, this guy's good. I just need a price on a transmission. And then, of course, we don't do that. We always check it out first because we don't want to make pricing on bad assumptions. We check the car out, didn't need a transmission. And that happens on the regular basis.
Yeah.
And with a specialty, I would put it like this. You got proctologist.
Okay.
And you got neurologist.
Okay.
They both have MD behind their name called doctors, right?
Yeah.
But if I got a brain problem, I'm not going to go see my proctologist.
Probably not. No, not a good idea.
And he is a doctor, and he probably could give me some answers because they all have the basics
Sure.
of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they all know what blood pressure is and all that stuff, but really, they don't. You know, so sometimes in this business, people don't know what they don't know, and that comes across as incompetency because they're selling you something for sure when they don't know they're wrong.
Right.
And then the other thing is that when you ask them and maybe they seem unsure, that feels like they could be dishonest, but maybe they're just into a system. They don't really know how it works. Maybe they're working with a technician that's explaining it to them. They got to retell the customer. And so something gets lost there in translation. And if he's learning from a technician who doesn't know, who's passing it to him, and he's got to regurgitate that to the customer and put it in customer speak.
Right.
That's where the dishonesty, I think, comes from.
Yeah. Communication is highly important, and it's hard to do when you're talking about things that at some point are unknowns. I mean, I start off with a whole bunch of unknowns. If people ask me a question too soon, the answer is I don't know.
Right.
If you ask me what's wrong with the car before I know what's wrong with the car, my answer is going to be I don't know. Does it mean I'm incompetent?
Nope.
No, it means I just don't know the answer yet. That's the job.
And people like to ask me questions before, and this is on the customer. They like to ask me questions before we've done the testing. They go, "What do you think it is?"
Yeah.
I say, "I have no idea."
Yeah.
When I have enough information to have a competent conversation with you, then I will tell you some things. But until then, I don't want to look bad because I don't want to be wrong.
We road test lots of
All the
cars
time.
with customers, and always at the end of the road test, probably 90% of the time, it may not be always, but 90% of the time, well, what do you think's wrong with it? At this point, I don't know. I could guess, but I really suck at guessing, and I'm always wrong when I guess. I would prefer to find out what's wrong with the car because that's what I do, and I'm really good at doing that.
Right, you are
so
good at that.
let's wait and have that discussion after I've done the diagnosis and I know what I'm talking about because there's a lot of different possibilities. And if you say one thing, they key in on that. Well, you told me on the road test it was this, and it's like, I said it could be that.
How many times have you heard this? No, I'm not going to hold you to it. What do you think it is?
Yeah, exactly.
They say that every time. And I go, no, absolutely you will hold me to that because that's what everybody says. And this is the discipline that I work with the guys in the front office about.
Yeah.
Don't give them theory or guesses because when you have to come back with a different answer, it looks dishonest or looks incompetent.
Yeah, now it makes you look incompetent. Yeah.
So rather than look incompetent, no, don't ask me for an answer I don't know. When I say don't know, don't push me.
Yeah.
And they do. Come on, you know what it is. You've seen this before.
Yeah.
No, I really don't.
And sometimes I do know. There's times I do know, but until I've actually put my eyes on it and done my due diligence to confirm what I suspect, man, I don't want to commit to it till I know. It's too easy to be wrong. It's easier to be wrong than it is right.
Way easier.
Yeah,
for sure. So I just don't think there's a problem with there is a problem with dishonesty.
Yeah, there's dishonest stuff out there. I've seen stupid stuff before.
Yeah. So there is a problem with that, but I would say that's less common.
Far less.
Far less common because there's a lot of honest people in this business.
Yeah.
There's a lot of honest technicians that don't know what they're doing too.
Yeah.
And that's the hard piece. And even if we hire a new technician, right?
Yeah.
Hire a new technician, he's in the shop. Are we just going to cut him loose? He's got all the credentials.
You just cut me loose. Yeah, I got like 2 days of training. Here you go.
You got more credentials than anybody I've met as far as this business goes. But yeah, you hire somebody, and I'm kind of watching. I got my eye. I'm seeing what they know, what they don't know, because different technicians have different strengths.
Well, that's the thing. We all know different things. Me and Ken can have conversations and they just bounce back and forth because Ken knows different things than I do, but we both have the same fundamental basics. Ken is our builder, by the way. And we go back and forth and, we can have these conversations that just kind of go step by step. And one of us will go, well, what about this? And, it just happens. But we both know different things, so we both draw on that. Nobody has all the answers.
No.
If they tell you they have all the answers, they're wrong.
They are wrong. And when somebody's too smart, I started holding on to my wallet. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I've always, and when you're talking about technicians in the shop, technicians often live in their own little world. You got a guy that's been in your shop for 10 or 12 years. He's probably the top dog at that shop, but his world may only evolve around that shop.
Right.
So his level of knowledge or competency or excellence is relative to the people that he's surrounded himself with. So, that's where we learned real quick I used to work for IATN, the International Automotive Technicians Network, and we had a bunch of members, and it was a place where guys could go and they could post questions about cars and information and stuff. And what guys started learning real quick was we'd get guys on there who talked a big talk, right? Until they got into the big world. So now we're talking about there's guys hanging out in these forums that were smart. Some of them were specialists. These guys had deep knowledge about what they were doing. And these guys would come on and they'd start making these statements and asking questions and telling them, these guys they were wrong and stuff. And these guys are going, well, let me tell you why I'm not wrong. And they could lay it out, man.
Right.
And they could illustrate it. And you see these guys, they come in, oh, I'm a super technician.
Right.
Well, I'm a really good technician. Well, I'm an okay technician. Well, compared to these guys, I don't know that much. So it's all relative to what you know.
I'm going to give you a quick story that really points this out because I tell the guys in the office. When I played Little League, I was the best on my team.
Okay.
Right? That's great. And even when Little League is set up, they have tryouts and everything. They don't want all the best kids on one team, right? So each team has got one or two that are really good.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm good. So I go to all-star tryouts. I make the team. Well, I get there for the first game, and I sit on the bench. Because you know what? Everybody's the best on their team.
Right.
So I was a big fish in a little pond.
Exactly.
And now I'm just a fish.
Yeah. So that's kind of the thing.
And I talking to Joey about it, who's one of our service writers, and my right-hand guy in the office. And, I said, Joey, let me get this straight. I said, every shop you ever worked at, were you not the best? They loved you. You were like the top dog. He's like, yeah. I said, me too.
Yeah.
So it's a whole to the environment that you're in.
Right.
So if you're in one shop for 10 years and maybe and you don't move out to learn more stuff to continue to educate yourself, you may be limiting yourself. As a technician.
Well, and that's the thing. Back in the day, the smart guy was the guy that remembered everything. The guy that knew dwell specs for points and stuff. They'd know the dwell specs. They'd know timing. They knew fuel pressure specs and stuff. We work on a lot more stuff now. Memorizing that stuff. I mean, they publish millions of pages of service information a year. Nobody remembers all of that stuff.
You just got to know where to go get it.
You got to know how to find the answers. Like I said, I've got a lot of stuff that I look up routinely because I don't have enough room in here to keep all that stuff in my head. So I don't try to remember it anymore. I try to come up with ways to put smaller pieces together to get these big picture answers.
Yeah, so I'm a consumer, and we're having this conversation. We're passionate about it.
Yeah.
Because we've seen both. We've seen dishonesty, and it makes me mad. And we've seen incompetency, which sometimes makes me mad if they're not willing to take a look.
Yeah.
Like, hey, maybe you don't know something here.
Yeah.
And in technicians, we have egos a little bit.
Yeah.
Some more than others. But so I'm a consumer. How do I know if I'm working with a dishonest shop, an incompetent shop, or a shop I can just lay my keys on the counter and say, take care of it?
I don't know. I have no clue.
I think
that's one of the toughest questions that there is. That's one of the toughest things because everybody's going to tell you how good they are.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody's going to tell you, I suck at this, you just never hear that,
No, you don't.
It's like, I suck at this. You want to give me some money?
Right.
I'll try fixing it. I don't know. So that's always the tough thing.
And that's the competency question. And the other thing is, what does a snake oil salesman look like?
Yeah.
You never see him coming.
Yeah.
That's why he's a snake oil salesman,
Yeah.
So how are you supposed to know that? There are things you can do, but sometimes people say, they refer to their friend to this technician. Now they have an Audi and they refer their friend over there who's got a Chevrolet or something. Well, maybe the Audi guy is not good at the Chevrolets. or whatever.
Oh, we used to get that. We used to have people bring us in. The first shop I started at did mostly domestic cars, and pretty soon people are rolling in with, oh, these people said you're the best. You roll in with an old Mercedes or something, and I'm like,
I don't know.
man, I don't work out. I never worked out. Back at the time, I was like, I don't know anything about these. So.
All I can say for a consumer is you got to do your due diligence. You can check things like the Better Business Bureau. You can check things like reviews. In reviews, you're looking for patterns. And even in reviews, and this is a thing that if you're a shop that changes oil and tires and brakes, you do kind of the easier stuff, right? Your reviews are probably going to be higher than a shop that is working on a car with 200,000 miles. They're dealing with real problems and real issues, and they're harder to fix, and it's a way more complex reality, and it's a lot more money, so the reviews are going to be lower.
Yeah.
So you got to even gauge reviews that way.
Yeah.
Is this just a quickie lube versus a shop that is really digging into some hard problems?
Yeah.
So if it's a hard problem, people are a little
I guess
touchier
the
on
only
that.
piece of advice I would have would be ask people you know. Acquaintances will usually tell you the truth. They'll say, "Yeah, I had a good experience with this guy." They'll tell you if they didn't have a good feeling about it. If results didn't work out, and they went back. How did they handle it when they went back? Maybe there was a problem with the repair, and how was it handled when they went back? That's important.
That's what you're looking for. You're looking for a character when someone is stand up. In other words, sometimes we have cars that come back where there's an issue.
Yeah.
Guess what? I'm going to assume it's our fault till I know it's not.
Yeah.
But a lot of mechanics get defensive.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't have done anything wrong. No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. That's a guy that never makes mistakes. Well, I haven't met him yet. I hear a lot of guys that say that, but I'm telling you, everybody makes mistakes in this business. Customers make mistakes. We mistakes. Mistakes are a part of life. It happens. What's important is how it gets handled
when there is.
When the mistakes are there. Are you working with somebody who's going to step up and own the problem? Yeah, I created this problem. I slipped when I was installing that seal and cut that seal, and I missed it.
It happens.
My fault. It happens. Things happen.
Right.
So it's just one of those things. It's really tough.
Do your research. Use your gut. If you don't have a good gut, don't use your gut. But anyway, well, thanks for joining us here on the Bumper to Bumper podcast. For more topics, be sure to comment, follow us, like, and subscribe. We sure love that. Makes us feel good. I like to feel good. We'll see you next time. Well, hello, I'm Dave Riccio, your host of the Bumper to Bumper podcast, and I would like to thank you for tuning in. If you want one of your car questions to be answered on our podcast, tap the link in the description for a chance to have your question featured. And while you are there, we would love for you to like and subscribe to see more Bumper to Bumper podcasts in the future.